Hello, BBN. Stokes was very close to Kentucky. Then they said he was closer to Kansas. And now the other day I saw an article that pointed to him being close to the Cats again. The truth is that he's going to be very expensive to sign. Is he still worth it for Kentucky? Tell me your opinion at the end. Let's analyze this. High-level recruitment rarely follows a straight line, and few recent cases illustrate this roller coaster as well as the saga involving Tyron Stokes. For months, the name of the top player in the 2026 class repeatedly appeared linked to Kentucky, then gained momentum towards Kansas, and, at certain times, was once again associated with the Wildcats. For some fans, the feeling was one of constant proximity, almost as if the outcome was always just a step away. The reality, however, paints a more complex and, curiously, less negative picture than it might seem at first glance. Stokes, considered the number one prospect in the country, remains undecided, although Bill Self's Kansas City remains a favorite at the moment. The forward's recent visit to Allen Fieldhouse, where he watched a game alongside players already committed to the program, reinforced the national perception that the Jayhawks are leading the race. Even so, Kentucky has never completely dropped out, maintaining constant talks and pressure behind the scenes. The central point of this story, however, is not just the athlete's sporting preference, but the cost necessary to make his signing viable in the modern era of college basketball. The most recent estimates indicate that the deal involving image and likeness rights could reach between $4 and $6 million. In practical terms, this is an investment comparable to the complete roster budget of many competitive programs. It is precisely here that the most important reflection for Kentucky arises. The question is no longer, is Stokes still worth it? From a talent standpoint, because, technically, few players offer such an immediate impact. The real question is strategic. Does it make sense to concentrate such a significant portion of resources on a single athlete when a market allows for building depth and experience in multiple positions? Within the current logic advocated by Mark Pope, this analysis gains even more weight. The coach has repeatedly signaled a search for efficiency in assembling the roster, prioritizing balance, versatility, and competitive maturity. In a scenario where millions can be directed toward veterans ready to contribute immediately, the financial equation directly influences sports planning. For the Wildcats, losing Stokes, especially as a player native to the state of Kentucky, would naturally have an emotional impact on the fans. The BBN has always valued local connections, and seeing a talent of that caliber wear another traditional jersey would not be easy to accept. Still, the recent update offers a different perspective. Perhaps the program is not necessarily losing ground, but rather choosing a more sustainable route, with promising names already in the project, such as Malachi Moreno, Cam Williams, and Colin Chandler. Kentucky possesses a young core capable of growing within the system. Directing resources to complement this core with experienced players from the transfer market can generate a more immediate competitive return, something essential during a rebuilding period. Another relevant factor is timing. The Wildcats are still awaiting their first official commitment in this draft, which increases attention to the coaching staff's next moves. Being momentarily behind in the draft cycle doesn't mean disorganization, but rather caution in a market where hasty decisions can compromise entire seasons. The Stokes case perfectly represents a dilemma of contemporary college basketball: generational talent versus intelligent team building. Kentucky remains interested, remains present in the conversations, but now evaluates not only who can arrive, but also what investment truly brings a program closer to a return to national prominence. Andrea Jelavic continues to move under the spotlight in Kentucky basketball. He's an intriguing piece, a player who seems to have found his place amidst the uncertainties of a season that has been anything but predictable. However, while Coach Mark Pope insists on molding him to fit a specific tactical vision, that of the modern power forward who creates space on the court, It's becoming increasingly clear that this approach may be underutilizing one of the Wildcats' most valuable assets. Jelavic is not a three-point shooter, period. The numbers scream it loud and clear. Against South Carolina, he missed all 3 of his first 3 long-range shots before finally finding success inside the paint. And even when he hit his only three-pointer in the second half, the final tally was disappointing. 1 for 6 on long-range attempts. But here's the crucial detail. Inside the paint, Jelavic was perfect. 4 shots for baskets. 100% accuracy. It's not a coincidence, nor is it luck. It's a pattern that repeats itself throughout the season. When you disregard his three-point attempts, Jelavic puts up impressive numbers. 41 to 61 from the field, with a 67% success rate. That's not just efficiency. It's a clear statement of where he belongs. The problem, then, isn't the player, but rather how he's being used. Pope, with a dual responsibility of coach and general manager, may be overwhelmed, making decisions that seem disconnected from the reality of the games, insisting on turning Jelavic into something he isn't, a defensive stretcher who creates space for his teammates. Seems like a misguided choice. The Croatian shines when given opportunities near the basket, whether through intelligent cuts, low-post movements, or even strategic screens. He's a player who thrives on physical contact, power play, and constant proximity to the basket. Forcing him to drift around the three-point line not only undermines his offensive potential, but also hinders the team's collective flow. The game against the Gamecocks was emblematic of this. Jelavic started poorly, but as soon as he returned to the paint, he found his rhythm. His 6 points in the first half came exclusively from plays near the basket. In the second half, he continued to show signs of life, but was relegated to the bench at crucial moments. This oscillation, starting in one game, forgotten the next, and then rescued without much explanation, reflects a lack of clear direction. For a team seeking consistency amidst the challenges of the SEC, this type of indecision can be costly. What makes the situation even more frustrating is that Kentucky already has complementary players who could help maximize Jelavic's impact. Diabate, for example, has shown skill in rebounding and could form an interesting duo with Jelavic in the paint. Playing Jelavic as a center, with Diabate as a power forward, could create a more fluid dynamic, allowing both to work in sync within the painted area. Furthermore, opening up space for Jelavic in the paint would free up other players, such as Denzel Aberdeen and Colin Chandler, to operate with more freedom on the perimeter. It would be a practical solution based on data and direct observation of games. But there's something deeper here, something that goes beyond statistics and tactics. Jelavic is a player who needs confidence. He needs to feel that his role on the team is defined, that his strengths are being recognized and valued. When he enters the court knowing exactly what is expected of him, he delivers. When he is forced to adapt to a style that doesn't suit his characteristics, he gets lost. And that's not his fault. It's the coach's responsibility to adjust his approach to get the most out of each player. Mark Pope has done an admirable job in many aspects this season. He has brought renewed energy to the program, injected new ideas, and given opportunities to young talents. However, the insistence on tactical experiments that haven't worked may be obscuring the true potential of the Wildcats. There is still time to correct course. Abandoning the idea of turning Jelavic into something he's not and allowing him to flourish in the paint could be the necessary adjustment to propel the team toward more consistent performance. The Wildcats are considering hiring a general manager not just as an interesting possibility. It's a clear necessity. In an increasingly complex college sports landscape where roster and recruitment decisions can make or break entire seasons, Mark Pope finally seems willing to acknowledge that his current workload may be hurting the program. The coach's words during his weekly radio show were revealing. "This has been a constant conversation for us," he said, highlighting that the search for structural solutions is underway. And it's not hard to understand why. Kentucky has always been synonymous with excellence in college basketball, but recent years have shown clear signs of growing challenges. Recruitment, once an unshakable stronghold for the Wildcats, now appears to be an area of vulnerability. The class of 2026, for example, has been a source of concern, with visible difficulties in attracting high-level players. Furthermore, the financial management of the current roster has raised important questions. As pointed out by the Field of 68 podcast, Kentucky overpaid for athletes who, while talented, don't seem to justify the investment on the court. This combination of strategic errors suggests that something needs to change, and fast. A general manager could be exactly the adjustment needed to restore balance and efficiency to the program. The ideal role of this professional would be to serve as a bridge between the chaos of the modern college basketball market and the technical decisions made by Pope. As highlighted by Jeff Goodman, a respected expert and active voice on the aforementioned podcast, the main focus of this general manager should be to create solid connections with agents and market analysts. This would allow Kentucky to avoid unnecessary financial waste and ensure that the team is bringing in the right players, both in terms of talent and tactical fit. But the impact of a general manager would go far beyond finances. He could also help alleviate the overload of responsibilities that falls on Pope. Currently, the Wildcats coach is involved in virtually every area of the program, from tactical planning to contract negotiations and video analysis of potential reinforcements. This level of commitment, while admirable, clearly affects his ability to focus exclusively on what he does best, coaching and developing players. A general manager could take on these secondary functions, allowing Pope to concentrate on maximizing the team's performance on the court. Another crucial benefit would be early preparation for the transfer portal, a tool that has revolutionized college recruiting. Currently, Kentucky seems to be playing catch-up when it comes to identifying and attracting talent available on the portal. With a general manager dedicated exclusively to this task, the program could adopt a more proactive approach. Imagine having someone whose sole job will be to constantly monitor players from smaller universities, analyze videos, and create a detailed list of viable options. This would allow Pope to quickly evaluate these names during the season, saving valuable time and resources. The argument that other top teams are already ahead in this aspect is impossible to ignore. Programs like Duke, for example, have demonstrated significant success in integrating a general manager into their administrative structure. Although results still vary from team to team, the trend is clear. The traditional management model is becoming obsolete. For a program with aspirations as high as Kentucky's, remaining stuck in outdated practices is simply not an option. Share your opinion.